the ability for us to give data to the business in a more meaningful way, more meaningful and relevant way, that they've grown in recent years. So I think the firms that are doing better at it are the firms that can really utilize that and push that forward. What we're doing now is we're moving slowly away from a legacy estate of individually built reports off, centrally held but fairly disparate data sets to this one source of the truth, if you like. And we're basing everything that we do off that.
Welcome back to the Katchr Podcast. Today, we're speaking with well-known face in legal finance circles, Ashley Maw, Head of Finance Systems at Bird & Bird. Ashley, welcome. Great to have you on the Katchr Podcast.
Thank you, Graham. Great to be here.
Yeah, so you spent over a decade now at Bird & Bird, who I think it's fair to say one of the UK's largest and most internationally integrated law firms.
Yeah.
So to start us off, could you give the listeners a quick overview of your current role and what Head of Finance Systems really means in a 500 million plus global law firm?
Yeah, sure. So Head of Finance Systems, obviously. So I work with a team of 5, direct finance systems team of 5, which I appreciate might sound small compared to other firms, but we're embedded within IT. So we've got all the resource that we need within the wider IT team to help us get done what we need to get done. But we look after our main finance system, which is Adherent. And on top of that, we've got a bunch of other ancillary systems that we look after as well, which comprises our finance system stack. We also interact with the other systems team, the other applications team in IT, and provide support to them. Because we don't use Adherent for everything, we use products like Intap and others. So yeah, we're very plugged into the wider IT stack at Bird & Bird.
Yeah, and one thing that always sort of fascinates me is, what's a typical week look like for you in this sort of role?
That's interesting, actually, because I've had that question quite a bit because we're interviewing at the moment. I think for my team, I think their average working week, if we split it percentage-wise, I'd say percentage-wise, 30% of their working week is dealing with queries and calls and questions that come in from users and issues, obviously. But the rest of the time, 70%, it's largely project work. And we'll talk about those projects in a bit. But really, the main focus of our work is project work and managing that. The same applies to me as well.
Okay, and how would you say the role has evolved as technology and expectations have changed in the time 10 years or so that you've been in the role? How has it changed?
So yeah, that's interesting. I think in this role, Head of Finance Systems, the role was very limited to just looking after your core finance system. And whether it's in this firm or the previous firm I was in or the firm before that, the focus was very much your finance system, making sure that the finance department could do what they need to do. But obviously with newer solutions coming along, and with that, newer problems, greater complexity, especially if you're if you operate globally and in Europe, especially. We found that actually we've kind of left, we've still got our finance system, obviously, but the core finance system, Adherent, isn't the only product that we use. And to deal with or help with the various challenges and problems that we've faced, we've looked out to market to find the best of breed solution for the problem at hand, and that has resulted in us having more projects as we've gone along, and more varied projects as well. I think also with different technology, we've got greater ability to bring in more efficiency. Most of the time, it doesn't always apply. But with that, there's unique challenges that I'm sure everyone in my position in a law firm will face, which is with that, there's inevitable change and managing that change with the business, be it finance or the fee earners.
Yeah, change management is something a topic that seems to come up an awful lot now in a lot of aspects of running a legal business.
Yeah, it's I'd say it's the one thing we have to think about most when implementing any solution. And also a big part of that is, rather than just implementing technology, it's the process that goes with it. And the change in working behaviours that people have to adopt, again, whether it's finance or fee earners. And for many, that can be quite challenging. But again, it's nothing new to anyone in the legal sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of talking about changes, what would you say the biggest priorities or challenges are that are on your mind at the moment, things that you're thinking about?
Well, I think for the next year and a half, at least, we've got a very set schedule of things that we're focusing on. So first and foremost, the main thing we're focusing on is tackling our working capital and getting that better, making sure that we've got lockup and billing really, as good as we can. And to do that, we've got a whole lot of initiatives, obviously looking at improving time entry across the firm, a big focus on improving billing, and that's a combination of employing new technology, but then also a real focus on process. But with that, there's challenges around local cultures versus global expectations. And also we're focusing on our collections process as well. But as you can imagine, they're all intertwined. So we're looking at the whole thing there. On top of that, a big one that's really been put on us, and any firm that operates predominantly in Europe or elsewhere, there's a whole load of e-invoicing and CTC, which is continuous transaction control mandates. That's a bit of a mouthful, that we have to comply with. So, for example, in the next year and a half, we've got 9 countries to roll out e-invoicing to across our network, which will be challenging because this is a move to submit all our invoices electronically, silently, without any manual intervention, which, conceptually for any law firm is a big change. So yeah, as well as meeting the technological challenge, it's going to be a big process change as well. So there's that. We're also having a bit of a focus on our treasury management processes and systems. We're looking to implement a system to help with that. And then a big one, which we can't ignore, is just meeting the growth of the firm. So we're in a fortunate position where we are opening new offices. I think in the last year we've opened 2, and that may well continue going forward. So of course there is quite a bit of work involved in that, onboarding new people, new office, different cultures. So yeah, there are our main 4 areas of focus at the moment.
There's plenty to keep you busy there.
There is, yeah, and I said a year and a half, but I think in reality that's going to stretch to 2 years easily.
Yeah. So if we just dive into one of those, first of all, the working capital side of things.
Yeah,
that's the first thing you mentioned there. So this is probably the perennial focus of most finance teams.
Mm-hmm.
What's your general approach to improving working capital in such a large multi-jurisdictional firm? You've got a lot of variables in there.
We have. I think it's. I'll talk broadly, and then I'll talk a bit specifically. I think broadly we've got a firm aim, which is to improve all of those areas, and to a degree, locally there is a desire to improve those areas as well. But what we often come up against locally is cultural as well as behavioural patterns that we have to work through. And sometimes at a global level, trying to marry the global drive to improve things with a bit of a balance at the local level as well. And a lot of that local level stuff can be driven by a bit of compliance. It can be driven by the nature of the work. It can be driven by partner and fee earner behaviour. So there's quite a lot to tackle there. And although we can argue whether in our firm or across the industry, we've got all the technological tools to help us improve time entry. I think at the end of the day, it's a real engagement, talking to people, working through objections, problems, challenges. That's the best way to really, get people to where we need them to be on the time entry side. In respect of billing, very simply, it's a case of we need bills to go out the door on time. I think right across the legal industry, there's this. As a lawyer put it to me once, he said, "There's often a feeling or a want to give the client an artisanal, hand-created bill for the work that's been done, when in reality, clients don't want that, and we don't need that. And the drawback of that is ultimately bills get delayed in going to clients. That delays money coming in the firm, but it also snarls up your collection process as well. So I think largely through process, we're going to be focusing on getting bills out the door. But again, there's technology to go with it. So we'll be working hand in hand with both those things to try and improve that process internationally. Again, you've got to tackle local compliance and behavioural challenges. So again, it is a big engagement piece with all the offices on that. And I think if we get improvements there, the collections will flow. We're implementing an upgraded collection system next week, in fact, that allows us to improve our collections process. But then with that, if the billing is working, bills going out on time, then the collections process flows from that.
So, is that a global system, or is that focused on
something? Yeah. So we're in the fortunate position of all our systems are global. So we've got Adherent globally, and then we use ARCS as a global system as well.
So how do you balance sort of central control with local responsibility across those different regions?
Well, that's an ongoing, forever challenge, perennial challenge, really. I think in a nutshell, it's really about engagement. So first of all, direction from the CEO and the CFO around where we need to get to. Once we've got that, then in achieving that, it's a collaboration piece, really. Principally from our position, working with the local finance managers to help them, with the new technology we're implementing, and alongside that, working with them to amend processes where necessary. And for the CFO and the CEO, it's working with the heads of country and the heads of department in the various offices to get their buy-in, so that the IFMs, the international finance managers, aren't fighting a battle on their own. So it's a bit of a two-pronged attack from above, but then us working collaboratively with the offices as well.
And what sort of role do sort of systems, reporting, dashboards play in sort of driving behavioural change or encouraging change amongst the lawyers?
So an increasing role, it's fair to say. So I think historically, information has been provided to the fee earning community at Bird and Baird. When we're talking about financial information in a rather financial way, or a accountancy-led way. So a lot of it is standard-looking tabular SSRS reports, and then to decipher a lot of the information in their partners or fee earners will require someone from finance to sit down, go through spot trends, and help them decipher that. But what we've started doing, we did about 7 years ago, is we implemented a couple of models. So we had a sub-ledger model and a general ledger model. And then from that, we started developing Power BI dashboards for the partnership. So we started at the partner level, individual partner level, looking at their own practice. And then we've now gone to head of country, head of sector, head of department, so on and so forth. And again, getting there and getting to a position where we've got something that can be relied upon and is used by the business has been a collaboration piece. So it's taken working with partners, getting feedback, working with the head of departments, head of sectors, to get something that's meaningful and useful to partners. So whilst that sounds great, I think adoption is another thing, because that hasn't been as, us in the tech space would think. People just haven't grabbed it and run with it. So again, to encourage usage in the business, there has been quite a bit of collaboration needed to just encourage usage. And again, drives from the head of sector, head of department, to get their partners and staff to use these dashboards. But compared to where we were 5 years ago, there's a lot greater usage of those.
Has there been a significant change in the sort of the way you present the information and the messaging alongside that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And obviously, whatever we've been developing has been aligned to the firm's vision and what the CEO has set as the firm's vision and key drivers for improving our business.
I think it's really, really key that you've got that alignment, and everyone can see the line that comes from the big picture to the details that they're being measured on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's good to hear. How would you say technology's shifting the culture around billing and collections? You said, you mentioned that you've just implemented a new collection system. Have there been big changes driven by the tech side in recent years?
I think there's been more promise than actual real changes delivered. And what I mean by that is we've embarked on several projects recently where we've adopted, as in signed the contract with new bits of technology, be it within our core finance system or other SaaS products that we're using. And we've gone out with the intention of implementing these. But actually, when we've come to it and we've trialed it with the business and worked it through, a lot of these solutions, they haven't been a one size fits all. So at best, what we've managed is to put forward some of these solutions so that they can improve processes in particular areas. But this is where we're talking about the fee earner community. But there hasn't been a one size fits all. I think it's different when you're talking about finance because it's easier to implement and roll out to the whole global finance community. But I think when you're dealing with a partnership or fee earners at scale in a global business where you've got so much cultural and local differences, it's difficult to get one size fits all. So we've had pockets of success with billing workflows and the like, but equally things haven't worked. Now, that's not to say that we've given up completely. So where things haven't worked, we've found another route, be it process or finding another technological solution. But strangely, sometimes just using the technology you've got and adopting a different process can improve things. I'd say there's one area in particular with us tackling billing on working capital. The solution to the problem is largely process, and that's at scale globally. And the good thing is we've got direction from the CEO and the CFO about what we need to achieve. So with that in mind, we can just work out a way of achieving that centrally and then take that down to a local level and work locally on achieving that.
So it's process as much as technology, if not more.
It is, yeah. I'd say, yeah, and it depends on the project, but with this one, for example, it's going to be 25% technology and 75% process.
Are there lessons for the vendors, the relevant vendors in that, in terms of how well these solutions fit the point?
Yeah, I think in some cases, yeah. And a lot of the vendors we work with, fortunately, are very good at taking feedback. So we can give that feedback to them. Obviously, the bigger the vendor, the more clients they have, the more challenging that is for them to really action the feedback that we give. But we're fortunate enough to work with some smaller vendors, and they can be a bit more agile, they can be a bit more responsive in working with us on meeting our needs.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on. So Bird & Bird's got I think quite a strong reputation for embracing systems and digital transformation.
Yeah.
How how are you currently thinking about the shift to cloud-based finance systems?
Well, cloud is something that we've really embraced for quite a while. I mean, and I would say, other than our core finance system and our collection system, I think everything else we use is pretty much in the cloud. And when we're looking for a new solution, I think our assumption is it's going to be a software as a service or a hosted product. So that's something we accept and we're happy with. And obviously the move right across all vendors across the industry is moving to the cloud. And although our core finance system collection system isn't yet on the cloud, we know that's an inevitability and something we're going to go to. But as with all these things, those are big projects, so that's something we need to consider and plan for in due course. And as I've said, our schedule is busy for the next couple of years at least. So that's a little way off for us just yet.
So what were the key drivers for you adopting cloud, and what sort of lessons have you learned from that as you've gone through this process?
So I think as time's gone on, more and more products and solutions are in the cloud. So if you just embrace the cloud approach, then you have greater flexibility and choice. We just simply got greater choice in the solution that you pick. The biggest thing we've learned about adopting cloud technology is making sure that you select right. So the selection process at the beginning is right. And we've got a number of metrics and key principles and things that we look for when we're looking at SaaS products. And it can be things like project delivery, integration in our current stack and with the key systems. Cost is obviously a factor. I think knowledge of the area in which that SaaS vendor works. Unfortunately, we are legal, so we do look for a precedent. Ideally, not someone who's brand new, but someone who's done it before. A good example is the e-invoicing mandates that we have to meet. This is all brand new to us, so we wanted someone who knew their trade well and could do this. So, fortunately, we found someone. So we look at that. We go through quite a strong vetting process, and then the next key thing is making sure that the agreements that we have and the contracts that we have are very well combed over, agreed, and we've got a whole process for doing that now. We've got over the last 5 to 6 years, we've built up quite a big in-house counsel team that help us with a lot of these tech contracts that come in. So over the last couple of years, I've been working with one senior in-house counsel who's really helped us navigate some quite tricky, challenging SaaS contracts, but making sure that we're protected as much as possible should anything go wrong, and they're both on the implementation side, but also going forward.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And obviously, as a tech vendor, I come across this on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
How,
I mean, just to add to that, obviously our infosec team has grown quite considerably over the last 6 years. So, as you'll appreciate, being a tech vendor, they have quite a big input to this process when we're agreeing contracts too.
yeah, I was just going to ask about the data security concerns. So essentially, you're mitigating those with your own team who are doing the right level of vetting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and again, they've got a very well trodden path, a set process for doing that with vendors.
Yeah. Okay. Has moving to the cloud changed how your team operates on a day-to-day basis? Has it altered the way you go about your role?
Yeah, I think it has actually, because historically, within a finance systems team, teams that I've worked with, this team and also other teams in the past, they've been used to having control and full access to any system and being able to open up SQL or any other code writing tool and fully investigate the data in the system. As we branched out and got more and more SaaS systems, of course, that's not easy to do. But nonetheless, these systems need to be supported to a degree by us, and also implemented by us. So I think when it comes to implementing SaaS systems, it's no less work. In some cases, it's a bit more work, but I think it's more around managing the change, managing the need for specific requirements that come from individual offices, navigating that with the vendors, and then also helping our users to change their processes and work with the new solution that we've got. And I think working with SaaS products, what it's allowed us to do, and I'm sure some of our users wouldn't say this, but it is true. It's allowed us to be a bit more flexible and agile. I hate to use that word, in the way that we meet some of the challenges, especially local challenges that offices have around compliance and process. And I think just implementing systems ourselves or having on-prem systems, I don't think we would have been able to meet a lot of those challenges in the way that we have. And I think part of that is not so much the cloud, it's the software as a service piece. So it's a vendor providing service to help us meet those challenges. Whereas if you're trying to do everything in-house as a finance systems team, there's only so much you can do. And, you get to a point where you just want to get the project over the line and you just put some of these items on a list for later. And that list never gets done.
It's interesting that, and the cloud and the software as a service often get sort of just lumped together, but actually they're two sides of the coin, really. And the service element, I always think, is really, really important. It is a different relationship that you should be having with the vendor, definitely.
Yeah.
In that sort of engagement.
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about sort of changes with there. So I would imagine the role of head of finance systems has changed over the years that you've been in that field. How would you define the purpose of your role today? What's the overall goal?
So yeah, I've been thinking about this recently. So as you know, I go to a round table with peers, and when I look around the table at my peers, I can honestly say we're all a varied bunch, and the type of person and skill sets that needed to deliver in this role, I think, depends on the firm, the size of the firm, and in a way the structure of the team that you're working with. I think historically this role has been one that fully qualified accountants have come into, and it's been very financially focused. It's been someone who's worked very closely with finance, managing the finance system with a strong accountancy background. But these days, whilst that's great, and those skills are essential, of course, with looking after a finance system at scale, there's other skills needed, and things like being able to navigate change management effectively. I mean, anyone who says they're an expert at change management, I don't believe. It's something that will always present challenges. It's especially in a firm with offices internationally. I think also the pace of technology is galloping along at quite a clip as well. So as you mentioned, Bird does embrace technology. We a lot of our clients are in the technology space or affected by technology, and with that, there's a responsibility internally for us to be up to date with technology and the changing pace there. So I think the nature of technology, although I would say in the finance system space it lags behind other areas of technology just because of the nature of what it is, things are still moving pretty fast. And because of that, it's important for people in our role just to have a good view out, and often beyond just the core finance system that we're looking after, a good view out to see what other challenges are out there, and what is out there in the marketplace to help us meet those challenges. Because I think historically, as a head of finance systems, you might have looked to your sole PMS provider to meet any solution or meet any problem that you've got or provide a solution. But I think these days you've got to keep an eye out of what's coming, and then just be as prepared as you can to meet that challenge. And a great example is these e-invoicing mandates. They've been tabled date-wise for a long time, and there were loads of ways in which we could have met that challenge. We could have dealt with it all internally. We could have increased our resource pool to do that. But actually, we just had to look at the problem we faced and just be open-minded about how we tackle it. And then we had to go out to market and get the help that we need. So yeah, I think in summary, I think the role has moved away from being purely finance focused to being a bit broader than that. Obviously, our key focus is finance, but and I think also the finance system in any firm tends to be the beating heart of the wider practice management system of any law firm. And these days, any law firm, or most, won't just have the finance system doing everything. They'll have other systems plugged in. So an ability to work across departments and be the main point of contact for financial information and making sure that integrations work with other systems, I think is also key.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned, the fact that finance systems maybe lag a little behind, in terms of the latest advances. But because you're talking about core financial processes, there needs to be a balance of innovation with stability. So
yes.
How do you think about that? How do you address that?
So if I talk honestly, I do sound completely contradictory. So, for example, on the stability piece, we're a big global law firm, and our finance departments crave stability. So we could, for example, upgrade every quarter, every year, but the reality of that would be it would be quite challenging, because we'd be moving along and facing new challenges on a very regular basis. So our finance departments globally, they're happy to work with the bugs they know, and the way the system works, and to just stay with that. So that's one side of things. And so when we do get to do upgrades, again, because we're so big, it takes a long time. We have to plan, and then we have to prepare all the users for the new world as it is in their day-to-day work. So that's the stability. But on the other side of things, we have to keep up, and we have to innovate and meet challenges that we've got. So, for example, this year, as I said, we're focusing on working capital. There's a new e-invoicing mandates coming up that's going to mean change, process and technological. And then also we're looking at treasury management again, and another system. I think when we're tackling those areas and where we can innovate is where you have a problem, people are more open to change. So and that's our real focus. So we have looked at problem areas across the business, and that's obviously formed our roadmap for the next 2 years. But when someone is having a problem that's looming, for example, heavy financial penalties if they don't submit invoices electronically, people are amazingly receptive all of a sudden and very open to change. So so then it's easier. And with that, on the innovation side, we tend not to look at implementing something that will fix the problem as we see it right now. We often look ahead and say, okay, what do we need from a solution to fix this problem now, but then also to make sure we're covered in 5 years' time for when the firm grows, or we change our approach to processing AP, for example, at scale. So we look ahead and then just try and work with finance teams or finance managers to say, okay, well, this will meet our solution now, but how can we leverage this technology going forward? How can we better use it to drive process going forward? So often, actually, we're quite fortunate. A lot of our teams internationally, they're quite receptive to that, and that's when you sit down with vendors and they go through the full suite of what's available. Often we have to just be very open and say, with our finance staff, but then also the vendor, we're probably going to do several phases here, several waves, because there's the first wave of meeting the problem, getting everyone on the software, changing processes, but then that other functionality that you want, that you're offering, we do want that, but we're going to have to part that in phase 2 or phase 3, and then we work out a plan to achieving that. So whilst that might not sound groundbreaking, that's probably how we try and push the innovation piece as well.
Yeah, and that I think that completely makes sense. Sort of looking at those sort of futures issues, how do you see the role evolving further? How do you see potentially AI coming into your part of the world?
So yeah, as for how the role's going to evolve going forward, I think the nature of moving to the cloud, and still at the same time trying to work with other software as a solution providers to meet the various challenges that any firm's got, but especially a big global law firm. That will change the way that finance systems teams work and engage with the business. I suspect for the better, because rather than being a team that will burrow down into the data and want to overanalyze data and deal with issues, you're forced to be more collaborative and get engagement from your software as a service or cloud provider, and then marry that engagement with challenges that that your client base have got, be it partners, fee earners, or finance staff. I mean, a lot of these cloud providers, such as R1, Advent, or Elite, they're saying that they will provide some level of access to the database. In reality, I don't know how that's going to work out, but the degree to which you will have that access will bring its own challenges, I think, because we're moving from a model, from the finance systems point of view at least, from having quite a lot of ownership, autonomy over investigating problems, and you're outsourcing that to someone else. So that will change the way we work. So hopefully I've answered that one. But on the AI side of things, so what AI, as we know, is working largely with large language models, and I don't think they've cracked it with numbers yet. So, well, for one, I don't think we'll be out of a job anytime soon, which is good. But we are already seeing with some of our SaaS providers, they are using AI and to good effect, and we are starting to try and leverage that. So it will bring benefits, and there's a few areas I can think of where it's going to ideally remove quite a bit of manual entry of data to improve our billing, let's say. And if we can get that AI piece working effectively, and we can get, say, for example, rules from outside council guidelines to then filter through to time entry or billing, then that's great, because that in itself is a big challenge that we're seeing. We're seeing more and more rules and guidelines that are coming up from clients that take a long time to analyze and review, and really for us to action the requirements that come from billing, especially. If we can automate that, there won't be anyone who will be upset about that. So we are seeing elements, and there's other elements of software as well where we are seeing use of AI to spot trends that will help us going forward.
Yeah.
Ideally. Yeah.
So bringing those sort of themes together, obviously AI feeds off data, and the applications that you manage are all around collecting data, essentially. So zooming out a bit, every firm I think now is wrestling with how to make better use of that data to get it to a better shape for AI. From your perspective, where are firms possibly getting it right now, and where are firms struggling with that whole scenario?
I think I touched on it a bit earlier in a way. I think firms that are succeeding are those firms that are emancipating data and providing it to the business in a way that can be easily digested by those who need it. So I think my point earlier about historically finance staff doing a great job sitting down and taking a lot of financial information and leading partners or fee earners through the trends to help inform how they should be pricing, running their business more, differently. I think firms that can just emancipate the data and provide it to fee earners and partners in a way that will give them actionable insights to improve their business or do whatever they need to do. I think that's really key. It's not easy. It's really not easy, but I think the firms that are managing to do that, it is good. Obviously, it's not putting anyone out of a job. You're not going to lay off your whole finance team by emancipating that data. All you're doing is you're taking a bottleneck. In my experience, taking a bottleneck and just giving the business what they need. I think another area where firms are succeeding a bit more is really upgrading their whole data and reporting estates and moving away from perhaps the way that things were developed in the past. And again, that's no criticism of how things would have been developed in the past. Development techniques and skills were as they were, but things have come on a lot these days. And, I don't need to tell you about the use of data lakes, data models, and then representing that in dashboards for very specific use cases that meet the needs of the users that need it. So I think the ability for us to give data to the business in a more meaningful way, more meaningful and relevant way, that they've grown in recent years. So I think the firms that are doing better at it are the firms that can really utilize that and push that forward.
Yeah. And how are you looking at, how is the firm looking at the sort of question of different silos of data across the firm and data governance and who owns the data? Is that something that you're actively working on?
Yeah, it is something we're actively working on. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'd like to say we've got it licked, and we've got a great way to tackle this, but we haven't. It's challenging. On the data silo piece, I think what has really helped is having this subledger and general ledger model, the couple of models that I said we'd created. And what we're doing now is we're moving slowly away from a legacy estate of individually built reports off, centrally held but fairly disparate data sets to this one source of the truth, if you like. And we're basing everything that we do off that. So if marketing need financial information, it comes from that. Anything that we do that relies on financial data will come from that. So I think that's a step in the right direction. The governance piece, we have put together a governance group to help drive direction. We have set up a list of key broad principles. For example, if you create a new report, it's got to match what your finance system says. That sounds really obvious. I appreciate, and to some of my peers, they'll be going, why do you even need to say that? But in a big global business with lots of challenging elements of data, historically, that might not have always been the case. So again, a governance group with broad key principles is a good start down that road. I think we've got a long way to go, but it's an ever evolving thing. So it's something we are very focused on, and yeah, hopefully heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it's the challenge that all firms are trying to get to grips with. As you say, there's no quick fix. It's an ever evolving scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we just finish off with a few sort of quick fire questions? Just say what comes to mind really on these things. So, first of all, what's a technology that you couldn't live without in your role?
Oh. Now I've got it. Teams.
Yeah.
Absolutely couldn't live without Teams. And why? The ability to have a meeting at any point with anyone within the firm, the ability to fire off messages back and forth, and the integration with Outlook. I mean, the pace of the work we do is generally quite frenetic, especially when you're in project mode. So the ability to just fire messages back and then convert that into a call if you need it is invaluable, not just with individuals, but with teams as well. So yeah, teams.
Okay. What would you say is the most underrated skill in law firm finance teams?
Ooh. Oh, that's a challenging one.
Or maybe
Mm.
looking at it another way, what's the sort of most significant thing you mentioned before that you're recruiting? So what's the number one thing that you're looking for?
Well, okay. No, that's good. Then I can break it down to two areas. And people who know me have heard me carp on about this before. So it's aptitude and attitude. So with the aptitude, I think with my role, an ability to work with systems, and I think in the finance space, if you are an accountant, being a good accountant or working with numbers or being a good biller, that they're key elements of the role. But the attitude is key as well, really key. So in my space, I don't always recruit people from legal who've worked with ERPs in legal, but people who have worked with systems. And if they come with the right attitude, they'll want to learn, they'll want to get involved, they'll want to pick up something new. And I think right across the board in finance as well, the way things are changing, I think having that attitude to accept that change is inevitable and willing to work with new people, new processes, new technology. I think that's really key, and I think that in itself is often underrated.
Yeah, I think that ability, that desire and ability to learn is key
Yeah,
in most
yeah.
roles, I would imagine. Yeah. So final question then. If you had an extra £1 million in your budget this year, what would you invest it in?
Um, oh, more staff for one. But more resale, I mean more resource definitely. And I would also look to branch out into looking at other problems within the business that we want to tackle. We have limited what we're looking at, largely because of we want to be able to deliver with the resource we've got. So if I had an extra wad of cash, it would be a case of saying, okay, what other problems have we got that we need to address in the next 2 years, and then how can we resource effectively to deliver and meet the solutions to meet those challenges.
That's been really, really useful, Ashley. Thanks very much for that. I know many of our listeners will take away plenty of ideas from that. So thank you for joining me today.
Brilliant. Likewise. Thanks, Graham. Good to talk.